biggest thing with your basic needs is that they are there in order for, like, they're necessary in order for your brain to function in a healthy way.
Welcome to the Elite Few podcast, where we explore the fabulous, extraordinary world of the people who move the needle of success. Join our host Tiffany and producer Kyle as we dive into the stories and insights of the elite few who are making a difference and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Elite Few podcast. My name is Kyle Goodnight. I'm your producer and co-host. This is my host, Tiffany Feeney.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. I'm happy to have you back.
So just to let everybody know, if Tiffany and I nod off, this is the 6th recording in a 24-hour period. We've already been 5 hours or so on the road today, up and back to record some really great shows.
And we fighting allergies.
Fighting your allergies in Ohio with all of
both.
We came out. Oh my gosh! Before we introduce our guest, we came out of the house that we were recording at today, and the next door neighbors were doing the leaf blowing and chopping, and this leaf dust was in the air. And I'm like, Tiffany, I know how your feelings about masks, but you may want to put a mask on when you go out to get in the car.
I will wear them for pollen. I'm telling you. My goodness. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. This is a rough weekend to come back to Ohio.
Rough weekend for you, for Ohio. But once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. If you hear this message today, it's going to be about deviant behavior. Tiffany's getting ready to introduce our guest and talk to her about everything that she has in her big brain of deviant behaviors and addictions and whatnot. And if someone, you hear this and you think of somebody and you think that they need to hear this message, please don't hesitate to share it with them. We are on YouTube. We are on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, pretty much all the major podcasts. We're on it, the Elite Few Media. Don't forget to leave comments in the link below. Anything we talk about today that references web pages or how to get a hold of people, we'll go ahead and put that stuff in the comments. And if it's something you want to know and you have a question, don't hesitate to send us a question. We'll answer it when we get to it. So Tiffany, go ahead. Let's take it away and introduce our awesome guest that we have, our last of 6 in 24-hour period.
So today we have Samantha Piper with us, and she is a licensed professional clinical counselor. And I actually had also, and you have been in deviant behavior for a while, and then before that you did addictions. I also heard rumor that you had went to Rollins College, one of the top colleges in the country.
I did for undergraduate. Yes.
Everybody, in case you don't know us, I actually met her there, and we went there together, and it was the best time of our lives. A little much too much fun at moments. We had a great time. So we both went on, got our master's degrees, and work in professional fields now, and act like grown-ups most of the time. So we are working together now to go over what actually deviant behaviors are. Let people understand a little bit about the way deviant behaviors work and how it falls into play with abuse and addiction. So I think one of the biggest things that we had even talked about recently was and this was something we talked about a while ago, was the lack of accountability that they have right away, and that they all tend to have justifications for their behavior.
Sure.
So when they tell themselves this.
Yes. So when something that is important to understand, and it's the same thing if you're familiar with addiction or addiction cycles, what you're going to find is they mirror each other. They're pretty similar, the addiction cycle as well as like the offense cycle. I mean, pretty much like almost 100% identical. So what we look at, and when we talk about like justification and whatnot, that kind of falls going into like the middle of the cycle a little bit, and then like towards the end as well. And so what you have to understand is there's a triggering factor that happens for people that sends them into their cycle. Now, what actually triggers somebody is going to be informed by their past experiences. Typically with these populations, 100% of the clients that I've worked with, I'm not saying that it has to be 100%, but 100% of the clients that I work with have tremendous, tremendous trauma, whether that's sexually related or not sexually related. And it is horrific. And so what that does is we have, to kind of make this a little bit short, but to give a better understanding that's important, is that every human has basic needs that need to be met. When we talk about these basic needs, there's 10 of them. And when we look at our basic needs, they're like even stuff like, fun, power and control, acceptance, and whatnot. And so I could go through all of them and spend days. But the biggest thing with your basic needs is that they are there in order for, they're necessary in order for your brain to function in a healthy way. And so your body or your brain is going to attempt to get these basic needs met when they aren't met. And so what happens is when you have childhood traumas or neglect, you're going to come up with other ways in which to get these basic needs met. And then those are maladaptive. And so what you do is you bring up maladaptive coping skills. Now, those coping skills at some point were helpful for you, like as a child or whatnot. Yes. So if you weren't getting attention from your parents or love or whatnot, then avoidance or something else you're going to use in order to compensate for that. And what happens is eventually this coping skill that you may need to stay safe in the moment, or for your brain to stay safe, no longer is useful for you. A lot of times like in adulthood or whatnot. However, all of your decisions are being made off of this past history. And so it just kind of combines. So what happens is you have a trigger, like something triggers, you have what we call like cognitive distortions or like thinking errors. And so it's like, oh my gosh, this person just ran into, they must hate me or not respect me, right? And respect is, again, a basic need. And so it's like, what do I do when somebody doesn't respect me? Now it's a defense mechanism because that's triggered. And so then you go into the justification, and then you have, another behavior. And then all of a sudden that next behavior is going to be your behaviors that are like at risk. So it's putting you in a place where you're about to reoffend, you offend, or you relapse. And then we get to the part where we're trying to hide it or justify again of why like it was okay. And then you go through it again. You trigger, you think about it,
complete cycle.
Behavior, and it just keeps going. And so,
And how many, we did talk about this earlier, there's quite a few that end up having addictions as well, or at least not admitting they have an addiction, but do use.
Sure. So I would say that it's not everyone. And it's, I wouldn't even say necessarily that it is the majority of the clients that I work with, but it's common. Like it's not uncommon. It is not surprising when somebody comes in and they also have a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction or sex addiction or shopping addiction or, whatever the case may be. It's, and a lot of this behavior is addictive. So when you're stealing somebody's like undergarments. So it could be your mother's. It could be any female that you have or male or anybody, obviously that you're attracted to, that you are stealing these items. It tends to be, female items.
Yeah.
And that act in and of itself, you may be like, I shouldn't be doing this, but there's still something that is, you're getting something out of it. And so therefore it is something that you continue to do. That compulsive behavior is there. And so the compulsivity can be a bigger factor. And it's not just based around sexual arousal.
Okay. So let's go a little deeper into that. We'll go to justifications a little bit more too, because I know that was a big thing that I had dealt with someone in my life who had a deviant behavior and said, well, we always have justifications, of course, as if he was blowing it off because he's an idiot. And when we talk about these things, let's say we're talking about something like voyeurism, for example.
Sure.
We are dealing with somebody who likes to, and you can correct me where I'm wrong on this, violate people who aren't aware. And as we know in my personal situation, those violations varied from just more than voyeurism, but to also being able to take advantage of people who were weaker than him or unconscious or so forth. So when you're dealing with something like that, and that is a trauma somehow that happened that wasn't met, and especially if there is abuse from the family, sexual abuse or something. And I know I looked it up the other day, and it said deviant behavior usually involves some sort of behavior that, as a child, that triggered that type of whatever it is their deviant behaviors. It could be anything. There's such a list. And I think the thing is, when we're talking about voyeurism, what is it that actually motivates that, besides taking advantage of somebody who's weak and isn't aware or conscious of what's happening?
Yep. So there is actually some new research out real quick, and I had it up and just realized that I shut it. That was done out of the UK on voyeurism, because there's not okay, so I see voyeurism within my practice. It's, it happens, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that it's something that we focus on a lot. It's just kind of like one of those, like deviant behaviors we take into consideration, unless it's like kind of like their primary situation. And there is I'm bringing up her name right now so I can get it right. A PhD candidate. She may have her doctorate by now, but I had just, recently went to an ATSA conference, which is a conference for people that work with people with like the sexual abusers and whatnot. National conference in Denver, and I was able to see her speak. And her name is Vicki Lister, and she is out of King's College, the University of Kent in Canterbury, Kent. And she did research on voyeurism specifically with men that were incarcerated in that country. Yep. And what they found was that there were 3 motivating factors, or there were like motivation factors, but like kind of 3 categories for people that were offending. And so, and with that, they also were able to create a new model, which has not been, to my knowledge, done yet within the field. So the research was really groundbreaking in what they did. And of course, it's very new, and it still needs to be replicated and whatnot. But from what they found, you have the individuals that are looking for sexual gratification. So I am quoting this from her. So rooted in sexual satisfaction, sexual interest in voyeurism or hypersexuality, sexual addiction. Voyeuristic engagement used as a coping strategy. So often what was said in her thing is like, I felt completely numb, and the voyeurism is what popped into my mind. It was the escapism for me, from my life, a safety net for me. So that was a quote from one of the people that she had worked with. Another category was maladaptive connection seeking. So we have people that are seeking it for sexual gratification, some for maladaptive connection seeking, connecting with others, typically through long-term sexual relationships with adolescents, or engagement with when lonely. And then the third type was access to inappropriate persons. So this was just simply, you had the capability, and so you did.
I think
so this
that's
is game
really
access.
where mine fell in, by the way. My situation, I think it was exactly
well,
that.
just wait a second.
Okay, this is getting good.
Gain
Just
access to inaccessible people, stepchildren or neighbors, usually extensive planning, such as installing cameras. So
there we go,
what they found was that people didn't typically weren't mutually exclusive in these categories, but this is kind of like what sprung it for them. And talking about bridging off of what we were talking about before, traumas and whatnot, they found that what was happening in these people's lives were similar. They were having really hard relationships with maybe significant others or just other people in their life. They were depressed, find other things, a lot of loneliness was kind of identified. And so it's that need for connection. And they also found that sexual gratification was not necessarily a factor.
The top of the list. Yeah.
Yep. So, so you could have no sexual gratification and still have that, again, compulsion there, because
it was a compulsion.
Yep. For some people,
but wait,
it was
let's be clear about the compulsion thing. So, the person I dealt with claimed that they had a compulsion, therefore it wasn't their fault. I'm a psychology major and a behavior master. Who are you talking to? My answer to them was, it's always your fault. Because with any addiction, compulsion, or oppression that you're dealing with as a behavior problem, if you don't admit it, am I wrong, Samantha? You're the licensed mental health therapist. If you don't admit it, you can't fix it. You will just deny it to yourself.
You hit on a really good,
thank you.
or I would say really, I can't think of the word, but hot topic within the field of SO or sex offender treatment right now. So an old school way of thinking is that if the client does not admit what they've done and get it out of the open, then they can't go through treatment. Research says differently. They don't have to admit what they've done. We find that them going through the process and learning, because
they have to go to treatment. They have to go to treatment. They just can't do nothing.
Everything is yes, because think about it. This is a symptom of something larger. And so if you're not treating the larger issue, then you're not going to treat the symptom. So these mental health situations, these traumas that happened, this is a way they have
to at least see
involved
or be
into
forced
these
legally
behaviors.
To go to treatment. The person that I dealt with is being forced legally to at least get an evaluation and then hopefully go to treatment.
Yeah. So what you'll find is, go ahead.
So
Kyle.
real quick. So one of the previous shows was about narcissism. And the person we keep on speaking of is a raging narcissist.
Yes.
And narcissists can't be cured by treatment. So where does that fall into place? I mean, I know that there's probably deviant behaviors out there that aren't narcissists, but if you're a narcissist on top of deviant behavior, then there's no hope for you. So even if you do go to counseling, it's not going to matter.
It's not that you can't be treated. It's that you don't seek help as a narcist. That's what Tiona was explaining.
Yeah, but if he's court ordered to do it.
But he's not going to be seeking help to be a narcissist. He's going to be he's court ordered to go for psychosexual evaluation. Let's see that.
Okay, so I work with a lot of clients that have comorbid disorders and a lot of personality disorders. So I have the gamut of the cluster B. So cluster B, narcissism, histrionic, antisocial personality disorder. It's all difficult when you're trying to get empathy and it's
of all of it.
So in narcissism, I'm not going to lie, it is extremely difficult to get them to a place. It can be done, and it does take, we take with what we do more of a holistic approach, and we treat mental health because, again, we don't want to just treat the symptom. We want to treat the causes. So we're looking at trauma, mental health, all of that because it's important. And so there are times where you can get a narcissist to get to a point where they can see their motivations and that they have narcissism. They like to know also that they have it because it's almost kind of like a badge of, kind of, I'm narcissistic. And so I'm cool or whatever. They can use it to their advantage, right? Even if they can acknowledge it. It is very difficult. It's not impossible. It's just hard. It is really, really hard. I don't even really know how to explain how to really like get to that point. It is really a lot of maneuvers that are difficult and take in that moment. And you have to sometimes play on their narcissistic tendencies in order to get the buy-in. And then it comes when things in their life aren't going the way that they want them to. When things start crumbling down around them, you can kind of get a bit of an edge way in. But the problem with narcissism is that they aren't wrong, or they can't be the weaker person. And so they have a really difficult time.
They can't deal with
difficult.
Anything where they are being not in charge of something. I know that his crackdown came from basically there was a list of things besides voyeurism. There was a list of affairs within that last year that went on.
Sure.
And that'll be fun. We'll catch up on that later. Anyway,
can't wait.
So much fun. Yeah, it's really great. Yeah. So, Kyle, when's this airing?
Probably early December.
So
if you want, we can make it early December. That puts us past the time.
Well,
I'm going to really take this not offensively that I was last and that you're like pushing mine out. That's okay.
No, we just,
I'm not offended.
We tried to get you in. We tried to get you in a couple weeks ago, and she had surgery. You had issues. Yeah. We've been trying to get you on for over a month.
Yeah.
But
whatever works best for you all. I'm very.
I think it would be interesting because I dealt with, and I like early December. So when my ex-husband was dealing with these things, something was going on and I thought he was having an affair. But when I found out what this was, I immediately was like, I'm wrong. My spidey senses are off. He was just videotaped. Not just, we took it to the police. I told the people who were the victims and they chose to press charges. Thank God, because he needed some punishment. And as of right now, I don't think he thinks he got that, but you can't run from karma. How many times have I said it? You've watched me say it to him. He doesn't like it. And the reality is I was wrong. It was both. And so when we talk about the comorbidity, the narcissism got worse the closer I got to graduating with my master's, and the control issues, and then the affairs happened.
Because he saw you getting more power.
Oh, I was healing too. Remember how bad I was. Kyle, remember I couldn't walk. I was sick. I had the surgeries. I had the car accident, the spinal surgeries. I was completely in bad shape. I kept getting better and healing. And then he was like, oh, well, this sucks. And I was about to graduate, take my state test, earn a living, be able to walk away if I wanted. And it would be the first time that he couldn't control that or financially freeze me out and not let me leave, which we know he's done on several occasions. Samantha was there when we tried to leave the last time, and he did financially freeze me out. And I was graduating like in 5 weeks or 4 weeks. And so it was kind of similar to this situation, but that was a whole little bit different thing. That was more abusive than it was anything else I knew about at the time. And I still don't know what went on and where the timeline is for this, right? I don't have a lot of information, and I didn't question him because at this point it didn't matter. It didn't matter, people, so we'll talk about that in a later date. We have shows coming up going into detail, but let's really go into, this is a really important question. I think people want to know for you too. How do you stay neutral and non-judgmental with your client, knowing they're violating people and they're probably ordered by the court most of the time to come to you? It's not like they walk in and go, you know what, I'm molesting a 6-year-old and I just don't feel right about it. Yeah. That just doesn't happen.
So,
it's knocking on your office door.
It's definitely not something that many people can work with.
You've got the good personality
difficult
for it,
I mean, what I have to even read like prior to them coming in or like writing these reports and such,
And you have to read all of it.
can be horrific. I mean, to say the least, it is difficult. How I am able to work with them, I think it kind of goes back to early on in school. I always knew that I would work with sex offenders.
Mm-hmm.
I just
I
knew
remember
that I
we
could
talked
do
about it. Yeah.
and that nobody else was going to do. And I just had a different way of looking at it. And the way that I looked at it was I would rather help somebody find a different way home that day and prevent them from hurting another, person, child, whatnot, than not do anything. Like I can take the having to listen to the horrific things if that means I can help somebody.
And you don't become overly empathetic with them. You still keep your wall up as everything you did is still wrong. I'm just helping you get better. You don't take the
yes and
approach
no.
Yeah.
So I don't find myself having a wall up with them. So I humanize them as well. So
I mean, you don't sympathize with their actions. You don't agree. You know how some therapists have a problem with feeling bad for them. Like, oh, you shouldn't be in this situation. You poor thing.
I'm not going to save somebody from treatment. But I also, and I think what people have a harder time with is I recognize that this is a result of, something that has also happened to them. And so when coupled with when you read their stories and you understand like what their childhood was like, and you go like, how did anybody survive this? It creates a human, like you look at them more humanistic, and I don't look at them just for their offense. I look at them as a person and them that have also have extensive trauma. I mean, when you're looking at somebody and you're like, how was your childhood? And they're like, oh, it was great. And then you find out that like every day their mom tied them to a chair with a, telephone cord and like beat them. And then it's like, and then like lock them in closets and stuff. And it's like, but they don't even know that that's not normal. Like they're not even, I mean, they've been incarcerated since they were, incarcerated since they were like early 20s. And then they're now in their 60s getting out of civil commitment for the first time, right? They've been incarcerated for like 40 years. They have no idea what is even a normal family looks like, or like, it's normal, but like what was something that would be healthy behavior would look like. And so in that way, I think it brings I bring more of like a humanistic like approach, in the sense that I'm not only looking at their offenses because I want to be able to help them not repeat that, but I want to try to work with the trauma that kind of led them to those decisions that they made. And like, that's where I can help them not do it in the future. Like, how do we come up with different coping mechanisms besides sexual deviant behavior? Like, where can I help you work through that? Where can I help you be open and honest when you're having these urges, so that way your team can help you and that you're not doing it alone, because nobody can do it alone. There's a reason that we do group therapy. There's a reason that we bring in people. Humans are meant to have other humans around them. And so the more they try to do something alone, the higher risk they are. And so I think that's like the easiest answer that I guess that I can give you is that.
So if you are watching and you are one of those people, get help, because you're not going to run. Karma will catch you. You will get found out, and there's not many people who are going to feel bad for you. I do want to say, I think a lot of children who've gone through abuse, been sexually abused at a very young age by their parent, their caregiver, these things. A lot of times we'll excuse things away. The person stopped because they felt bad, right? So they quit sexually abusing their children. But then
I think it's just really important to note, just real quick, that a lot of people that are sexually abused do not go on to sexually abuse.
No, this is very true. As a matter of fact, we really do
want to note that a lot of people,
the chances of you being sexually abused
weren't sexually abused themselves.
But they will also sometimes, those people will grow up to be adults and they will stay in contact with those people because they quit doing it because they felt bad. but then they verbally abused you and they physically abused you, you still have a right to set boundaries and say, you may have quit sexually abusing me. You still don't get to have input in my life. You are still, and they're causing more trauma because they're now adults and they feel like they can
Yes.
criticize their life still.
And that's,
You haven't learned to set boundaries because even your siblings are like, well, they did stop and they felt bad.
There you go. You didn't learn. You don't know how to set boundaries because you didn't learn how to set boundaries, because boundaries weren't present when you were growing up. And so you didn't have adults or people around you that were setting healthy boundaries and taught you how to do that. And so that's part of the problem. There is something that, that would be great to look up. If you know, anybody that's listening, you have a chance, and it's like, needs to do a little bit of boundary work. It's called your personal Bill of Rights. And so it talks about, like, you have the right to say no. And that doesn't mean you have the right to say no and then give a reason. You can just say no because that's
you
okay.
were the best. You did that in a class. It was you were doing your master's, I think, right? And you had to go through that process of just saying no. And I did it.
It took this whole term, by the way.
No, it did. But if you remember, I did it when you did it. And it's not easy. I now do it way more often. Now, there are times I will tell somebody, okay, I am sorry I have to, because, it's not a homework assignment, but I now have no problem just saying, no, I can't be there.
Yep.
And all because Samantha took the class and they made her do that. It is a healthy boundary to be able to just say no and not give a reason. I don't need to tell you that what my plans are that day. One thing I would like
working with people with their boundaries is one of the hardest things that I have to work on with people, whether I'm working with couples or I'm working on with people in like a day treatment program or just individuals. Working on personal boundaries is one of the most difficult things because so many of us didn't learn them, and it's just it's hard to keep healthy boundaries. But once you start learning you feel so empowered.
You're not only empowered, but you're going to be less likely to give in. So a lot of the people who are sexually abused, well, very many of them end up with drug addictions or certain addictions, whether it's pills that they don't want to use, but they're just trying to function, or alcohol or whatever. I actually have huge sympathy for people who are going through this because of the abuse they suffered. And and also because I do know the steps they need to take to heal. I know X, Y, and Z, and let's do that. So when somebody does admit to me, this happened, this is what I'm doing, I don't know how to deal with it. Okay. I can point you to A, B, and C. I can hook you up with this person. We know how to disconnect. With boundaries, it can help you with your addiction issues, and the sense
it
that
is absolutely part of it. Any program that's worth their weight is going to, boundary work is going to be something that you learn like from the start because it's so important.
And I think
with that boundary, when you mentioned earlier your personal Bill of Rights, was that a book or is that like a web page? What is that?
No. So you can just Google it and you will come up with all different, like the list is pretty much the same. But if you Google it, it will just come up like Google Images or whatever, and you can just print them out. Like I can get a copy from Google and send it over to you, but
no, I just want to make sure we
we
find one. Yeah, we can find one, put it in the link below, just so people have access to it.
Yeah, it is so easy. You just type in personal Bill of Rights on Google and it's the same list and it's going to come up in all different formats. I use it with my clients all the time.
So you, Samantha, when we're talking about the boundaries and helping people who have been with sexually assaulted and dealing with this, a lot of times they don't feel it's okay to set boundaries with the adult that was not stopping it. Like I'm going to set boundaries with the abuser, but what they don't realize is that the other parent or aunt or whoever the mother, the father, like whoever the other parent, the non-abusing parent, they allowed it. They were the ones that were neglecting you too. There's abuse in, I don't even know the word, the right word is skipping my brain, but they are allowing the situation to continue.
Yes.
And they also
enabled
boundaries set up. And thank you. That's exactly what I want. They enabled it 100%, didn't support you in a protective manner like they're supposed to. Therefore, I'm just saying you are allowed to set boundaries with them. Both of those people.
It is so hard, especially when it's your parents.
Yes.
Because it's not natural to want to, either cut those relationships off sometimes, which is necessary, or
it is
to
for
set
a while
those parents because you got to think there's that power dynamic as well. And so there's a power dynamic that you are fighting against. And if you were in these situations, and this is the household and whatnot, think about where you learned a lot of your boundary setting from is the very same person who did not protect you when needed. And so you came up with your own coping skills. And part of your coping skills was probably avoiding and just letting them say whatever and then like moving off, which I'm sure, Tiffany, you know a lot of. And then,
I went through a little of that. Yes.
Just a smidge. So, it's like, it's
that's why I'm sympathetic and I'm understanding.
Yeah. It's kind of like a hamster wheel that you can't get off of, and it reinforces itself. Yeah. And so it is, that's why, people are in, therapy for years or whatnot. I mean, there's different theories. There are different types of therapies. Some people do them, very short sessions, sometimes very long. My approach, my style is we could be working on this for 10 years. Like, I don't know, because as more stuff comes through, like we have more to work on. And I definitely, like, some people look at from like this point moving forward. And I'm like, everything that happened in your childhood is important. That's my perspective. That's the theory. I work for more like a psychodynamic kind of.
No, we just talked about this in
standpoint and such. So
last 5 shows, Kyle. So the idea is, this, everyone watching, if you've watched any of our previous shows, what happens to you in utero, 0 to 5 and 5 to 10 is carving out your entire life. And that's the basis of who you are as a child. And behavior, when we're doing with behavior, all of your behavior is built from there. And it's really what I liked about hypnotherapy. It's not that they're erasing your memories. They're not. What they're doing is they're taking the triggers away. And it took me a long time. Even when I met you, I had not set clear boundaries with family members that had been abusive. I didn't even understand it yet. Now I have some boundaries. And of course, at first, it doesn't work. They don't like it.
Which is so funny because you're such an Aries, and like, so boundary setting is really not,
because when you go through those abuse situations, I might be an Aries, but I didn't set boundaries with anyone.
So that's what I was going to say, is because you are very clear on what you like, what you want, what you're, so you have no problem telling somebody this is how it is. At the same time, that's why it's so important, is that you don't know what you don't know, or you don't know until you start questioning what is going on with yourself, and you start actually dissecting, saying, is this something I still believe? We start getting down to those core beliefs. Is this something I still believe? Does that still make sense for me? Is it still working for me? Until you start doing that work, you can't really start healing that trauma and really start getting those behaviors changed. I mean, you can start changing behaviors, but you have to change the entire way that you process information.
Yeah.
Really. I really think that deprogramming is a really big part of it.
I really think the last 8 years, 10 since 2013, was Kyle and I have talked about on the show, my healing process kind of started in January when I decided I had to stand myself up. I really don't think that's true. I think there was a lot of steps that I was taking in the last 8 to 10 years that have to count, that got me to the point where I said, I'm not tolerating this. Or, actually, with my divorce, it was the violation of other friends, family, and loved members under my nose that completely, the hidden cameras, that was unacceptable. I actually am not in denial that I think it was going on with me. And you and I both know there was worse things going on with me that we're not mentioning right now. But I do believe that I'm more sympathetic towards people who haven't started their journey of healing.
Yeah.
More, I'm not even sympathetic. I think the answer is I would definitely listen and help you. I want to. And the reason is because, good Lord, look where I was when I met you compared to where I am now, in just a growth process of dealing with stuff. And setting boundaries, I think, is a big one. But also
setting healthy boundaries.
Thank you. I like that. Yeah, it's not just I don't want the handcuffs tonight.
Because you can you can set boundaries that really don't work for you. And that's typically what we do. We set boundaries all the time, but they don't actually work for us in a way that's healthy for us. So
no, I did that all the time in my marriage. I set boundaries that weren't actually fixing anything. They weren't changing abusive situations. But I do feel like what is the thing you can tell someone who has going through this, they're in their 20s or 30s, and they have been through this abuse and they have not started that process. They dealt with a person who had deviant behaviors in their life and an enabler. What is your answer to them? Like where do you start? And not feel ashamed, not having the shame.
Yeah. Find a good therapist. I mean, I hate to say that, but
a therapist
that like works for you. Like, okay, so you can have a phenomenal therapist and it not be a good match. So when you go to find a therapist, feel free to shop around, talk to them, talk about the way they conceptualize, the world, how they go about something, because that's going to be where you get the best fit. And I think that's a good place to start, because when you're working with childhood traumas and such like that, or even if you don't even know, a good test is the ACE test, ACE. The ACE is
just talked about it. The program for this. Yes.
Yep. Right. There we go. Yes. So plug another one. So that you can take it online, and it just kind of, it goes through and asks you different questions about things that you experienced as a child and that could be traumatic. And so a lot of people have gone through trauma that don't know. There's also another,
or they can't remember all of it. They know there was they know there was something, but they really don't remember a lot of it. But they still had the physical abuse and the verbal abuse that is still affecting them as an adult. You know what I mean? And they're not setting those boundaries.
And that's your way, because our attachment style that we form based on our childhood experiences with our caregivers will inform our attachments with relationships with friends, family, coworkers, other relationships. And so those attachment styles, it's important to also understand your type of attachment style. So that could also be something that might be helpful if you're like, I don't really know if I'm ready for therapy or not yet. Take a look at the ACEs, take a look at attachment styles. Again, easy Google attachment style quiz or something like that. There's tons of them out there. And, that doesn't give you like a formal diagnosis or anything, but it can give you kind of an idea if you may have a maladaptive attachment that could be affecting your life. So if you start, looking through something and it's, and you're like, ooh, that sounds like me, but this is like actually saying it's not, super helpful.
Yeah. If you chances of them marrying somebody who is as abusive and has deviant behaviors, is very high.
It is much easier.
Yes. Yeah. It's just,
we could do a whole other show on relationships.
I'm right here with it. Yeah.
Formed in together. I'm looking at it. There's a book that is really helpful if you've gone through trauma. Be aware that it could be very triggering, but it can help you understand what happens in your body. It's, I want to say it's The Body Remembers, but that might be the other one.
The body keeps the score. The
Yes.
body keeps the score.
There we go.
Just have a
That's the
reoccurring
I always
theme.
listen to
third
Body Remembers, which is a
Aces.
good book.
So,
but it's
so
the Body
everybody
Keeps the Score
Yeah.
is like 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
I
Thanks,
think
Kyle.
I think we need to get a hold of those body keeps the score and the aces people, because everything has come back to that from all of our professionals that we've spoke with without even bringing it up, So, I mean, one show was specifically about the aces, but
That's
we
true.
wanted to introduce it to people because I didn't know what the aces score was. Tiffany didn't know what the aces score was.
Yeah.
And we were like, and I explained it to her and she's like, oh my God, send that link to me. And that'll be, once again, the aces
It's
score
interesting when
link
you
will be
take
in the
it, you're
show
like,
description.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's
So, and if when it comes to our other episodes, if you've seen them, you've already been introduced to the ACEs score. If you haven't taken it yet, I implore you to take it, because it could explain a lot of stuff that is deep inside you that you're not admitting to anyone else but yourself. And I'll even also implore you to be humble and to be open-minded when you're trying to do that deep dive to figure out what the hell is going on with you if you just don't feel right, So
I love it, and I love everything you're saying. Is, my God, it's so great and so amazing, because I think the process is to heal people and to keep them from repeating a cycle that they don't know they're keeping. I brought this up in one of my little tidbits. It wasn't on a show, but the problem is with being raised in abuse. Like you said, same thing I said, they're providing your roof over your head, your clothing, making sure you can go to school, your food. It's like Stockholm syndrome. You actually are dependent on the abuser for everything in your life and all of your necessary needs. So it's really hard for you to make a clear-cut line that this person is bad when you aren't getting without that, when you're 7, you can't separate some of that.
Well, and think about how much worse it is when you're 7 and they're not meeting those needs, even though they're the ones that you have to depend on. You're not getting food from them. You're not getting appropriate shelter. You may not have electricity. You may not have, even the things that we talk about, like in Maslow's hierarchy, that very bottom section of just
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Need to live, and they're not getting it at 7 years old. You have to be the parent to your siblings because you're not receiving that either. And so, but the adult is supposed to be the one that's taking care of you. And so what messages are those giving? And then, maybe you're getting, hit or abused at home as well. And so therefore, what power do you have? Therefore, you're not having any autonomy or power and control, which, again, it just snowballs. Yeah.
Well, and I believe it feeds into stubbornness and ego, because you have to fight for that control. And it's harder for you to ask for help, even if someone cares about you and wants to help you.
And but you can't trust people.
You can't what?
Trust people.
What was that? You have a lack of trust because you don't trust love, because love has always been not okay to you. So you're like, how do I trust this? Yeah. You're pushing people away.
Which means you're not getting your other basic needs met because you need people there to get basic. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. This is oh my God, goodness. Yeah. All of it, Sam. All of it. So I think one of the most important things when you're a kid and you're going through that, there are also people getting all their needs met because they're from a wealthy family. So they're getting food, water, shelter. They're not taking care of their siblings. But now, and how many people do we know that grew up in wealthy families that are getting that abuse and now they can't reason it out? Or even middle class families. Yeah. I mean, that's
because there's a psychological aspect as well. So you have people that have all of those needs, like they have the clothes or the food or whatever, but they don't have the emotional needs they need met, or they can't, like, their parents are just not home ever, and so they don't have that connection that they need. So it's all it's all there.
It is. And I really so definitely, Sam, just you can go ahead and give us your final words on what we need, because I love it. We hit so much, and we'll have you and Tiona back on together and being able to do
that.
I know. Me too. I'm so excited. The things that make you excited when you're an adult. So we go ahead and give me your final words, other than, if you know someone cares about you, Reach out to them. If you believe someone cares about you, you're afraid to trust them, but maybe you could be wrong. Take the risk because your healing is worth it and it will change your life. And also, you can agree with this. It will allow you to be more successful throughout your entire future. So you're in your 20s, you haven't dealt with it yet, deal with it. It will change your life.
Yeah. I think that if you think that this could apply to you, then there's probably something that could apply. And so whether it's not sexual trauma or anything like that, if you're curious, be curious, and you're not going to lose anything from, kind of taking a step in that direction. If you're curious, even if it's just doing something as simple as, Googling the ACEs test, ACE, and just doing that and seeing if you have any.
We will have the link for the ACEs test right below, and we'll have
ACEs,
a link for the Body Keeps the Score and the link. Just look below; you'll see it on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Body Keeps the Score, the ACEs test, and
it's not, and the Body Keeps the Score is a good one, but it's the other book that I would recommend more.
We just said it.
We did just say it. Anyways, you'll have it. And I'm not a wordsmith. Yeah. Okay. I don't remember. I have it on my bookshelf right behind me, but yeah.
It's 10 o'clock. We're old. It's rough.
Nope. Turning into a pumpkin. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I can stay up late given the right situation. But I
keep forgetting to put S on the end of ACEs. It's ACEs, not ACE. It's ACES. Even though I keep forgetting the S. I don't spell
No.
either.
I love that. No, I love it. I really think it's so important. You just, and I don't know if this interview is going to be out yet or not. We just talked with a lawyer who dealt with sexual abuse cases and people who had deviant behaviors abusing these children. And I find that, as you know, not everybody ends up in your office or in a office under court mandate. Many of them just walk away. So, and especially last century, there really wasn't a lot of backup for that. It was almost like you really didn't have a lot of backup. So I think we have a lot of people from last century dealing with stuff that nobody was watching out for them. Like, today it's a little bit tighter, but it's still happening. People are still walking out of courtrooms without punishments. Samantha, we came up with great ideas for people. The links, like we said, are below. It's all amazing. I think if everybody steps up and if there is somebody in your life that does care about you as an adult, try to reach out and let them help you and see if it works. Would you agree with that, Samantha?
Sure. Yeah, I would say that
a partner that's trying to be involved and help you, but you are scared.
Yeah. And there are professionals out there that they can help, and they can help guide you through it, and kind of take it at your pace and whatnot. So never too late.
It has been more than fun. I felt like this was the old days, Samantha, and we were just going at it like back at school. So that was really exciting. And I can't wait to be on here with you and Tiona. So I want everyone to keep watching. Kyle, final thoughts?
Nope. I just appreciate Samantha coming on and sharing her knowledge and her wisdom with us. I know it has to be tough. I did have one question, and we don't have to spend too much time on it, but this question was really good today when we asked someone who deals with rough stuff and sees and hears and listens to, and now you are actually working with people that you're trying to help. What do you do because that is all form of trauma as well in your life. What do you do? What are your couple things that you do real quick before we wrap it up? What are the couple things that you do to help yourself through these times? Because as we know, that associated trauma can be something that could build with us. And when then we need our own help, or how do you go about, diminishing that for yourself?
I'm quite gifted at compartmentalizing. So I have to do that. I have to set things aside.
It'll catch up to you though. No,
it will.
No, it will, but she is very good at it. Yeah.
the secret is that we have really dark humor. And so with my colleagues,
Yes.
we just have, I mean, that's as far as I can go, is that if anybody were to walk in, they'd be like, what did you just say? Like, how could you say that and probably report us? So that is super helpful. Always engaging with my colleagues, always talking to them. We debrief constantly, talking about cases, just how we're like feeling about something, like that is a constant part of our day or week. And it's just absolutely necessary.
Being mindful
and we have
of what you're feeling.
And to be mindful of what we're feeling. And we're always like watching out for each other as well. And it's like, that was a bit of a tough, or something's looking at maybe, lighten up the caseload a little bit or, take some time off, whatever. But we watch out for each other and we're talking about it. And we just really have dark humor and it's phenomenal. And
Kyle has really pushed me into more mindful stuff and really, I got him into understanding manifestation and affirmations, and he's pushing me to be more mindful. And and really that's come up earlier today too, so I love it.
I love positive affirmations. That's fantastic.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, you'll love my new TikTok and Instagram. It's all on affirmations and understanding how to apply them correctly with manifestation as well, so I'm really excited about it. So anyway, Kyle said his final thoughts. Samantha, we cannot wait to have you back, and
can't wait to be back.
I know, me too. I want
you
everybody.
My podcast cherry. There you go.
Oh, look at that. Your first one. Okay, let's go. So I want everybody to, of course, get healthy, be happy, and stay fabulous. And we cannot wait to have you join us again.